The road to a shot at $300,000 continues tonight and does not only turn left, it turns left and right as we go road racing on the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, which, as I mentioned, literally takes the word road seriously tonight as we come to you from Charlotte Motor Speedway and the Roval for round number 5 of competition here on the Road to Pro. And welcome to Podium Esports coverage of said road. Jacob Seelman alongside. I don't know if I'm quite ready to call him former Road to Pro driver Blake McCandless, but perhaps at least for one night we'll call him our special guest. And of course, eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Michael Guerrilla also joining us as an analyst in the broadcast booth tonight, working our way through qualifying and a very quick 55 laps, Blake. I know for you, the Roval spelled terror right away. How difficult is it going to be for the field that we've got here in top split tonight?
Oh, it's going to be really tough, Jacob. Of course, you look out and even over the qualifying times you see right now, very large spread. It just shows you the gap in these guys that have really put the time in, have been able to understand how to run this road course with the right setup. And you can already see right now, almost no surprise at the top of the board, but we'll let that go on for a second. But you're right, Jacob. There's a lot of difficult parts of this road course that makes this one of the unique challenges in this year's iRacing Road to Pro Series.
And Guerrilla, if we look at this, I think it's only appropriate that we toss a road course in here because you guys have to deal with a little bit of road racing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. It's something that, as we know, is a unique challenge, and you've got to be adaptable. And I think that's what makes tonight's race particularly fun.
Indeed, it is. I know road racing is just a minute part of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series schedule, but it's also a very important part as well. As we saw last year, that Bobby Zalenski made his way into the playoffs last year by winning the Roval in a clutch last race chance. So it's really shows the skill a driver can possess along with the extra skills that they have. But it's really a treacherous track, and road coursing is just a big part of racing in general.
So we'll go ahead and take a look at tonight's starting lineup for the top split of Road to Pro here from the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval with, no surprise, Mitchell DeJong on the pole, a very, very accomplished iRacing road racer. He'll start alongside Steven Wilson with Jake Matheson and Donovan Strauss in row number 2. Braden Boulos with a strong 5th place qualifying effort alongside Jarrett Liebert. Alan Bowes starting 7th tonight with Daniel Roper, a driver who definitely should be in victory lane by now, or should have been in victory lane to this point in the Road to Pro season. Seth the Merchant starting 9th, and Caden Honeycutt, Blake McCandless completing the top 10.
And starting 11th and 12th in row number 6, it'll be a pair of drivers that are atop the point standing. Zach Nichols and, of course, your points leader in Ryan Doucette. They'll roll off 11th and 12th. Briar LaPrat, he rolls off from the 13th spot. Blake Neer is outside in row number 7. Ryan Kuhn will roll off 15th with Garrett Maines in 16th. Next is eSports' own Brandon McKissick will roll off 17th. Carson Hocevar in 18th. Jacob Hall in 19th. And Drew Fearnaz will round out the top 20.
Kenny Brady starting 21st tonight alongside Dylan Rafferty. Brandon Houff in 23rd with Will Norton alongside him in row number 12. Michael Fenlison in 25th. Dylan Jones 26th. Brian Blackford rolling off the 27th position. Final driver to take a qualifying time tonight. Trucks that will start from the rear with no time in qualifying. Brad Mahar, Derek Bordeaux, Trayton Lapsevich, the young Canadian, Casey Tucker, and Nick Morse completing 32 cars here tonight as we get set to roll for 55 laps at the Roval. And this particular racetrack, we talked about it a little bit, Guerrilla. It poses a unique set of challenges: an 86-degree temperature, 98 degrees of track temp, and about 12 miles an hour wind gusts. That's going to add to the chaos I believe we're going to see tonight. It's going to make it very difficult to work through this circuit.
Indeed, it will. The weather, as far as temperature goes, is what they've been relatively testing in all week. But the wind is going to be a factor, as some corners will have that push of the wind out of the track. That's going to make the car tight, and then on the opposite end of the track, it's going to make it a little looser in some corners. So to see how the cars will affect it with the wind. This will be interesting to see tonight, and just to be able to see who can actually maintain the conditions as it goes through the race with the rubber building up on the track and the weather changing throughout.
We're glad you're along with us here on Podium Esports as we work through tonight's coverage of the Roval. 17 turns in total, if one is counting, including a majority of the 1.5-mile quad oval at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. About 8 turns through the infield section, and then 9 more through what would be oval 1 and 2, the backstretch with the bus stop, and then 3 and 4 with the final chicane before you get back to the start-finish line. And I think a lot of storylines to watch, most notably with the fact that points leader Ryan Doucette starting outside row number 6, and he is going to have a little bit of work to do, I think, in order to, you don't have to win tonight. That's the big thing, Blake, but you do want to have a solid day, and I think top 10 for a lot of these points guys, the guys in the points, is what they're going to be targeting.
Oh, you're exactly right, Jacob. Of course, everybody wants to go out and win any race. These guys are competitors. They want to finish up front in any race they sign up for. But the thing about Road to Pro with just the type of season it is, you have to think big picture. And these guys, they're looking at the amount of points or close to the amount of points they need per race to be able to stay in the hunt and fight for that top 20 spot to advance to the NASCAR iRacing Pro Series. And again, a lot of these guys, like you said, would be thrilled getting out of here with the top 10.
Working through oval 3 and 4, if you're counting turns on the Roval, that's turns 13 and 14 overall, and the iRacing pace car going to make the turn to the safety of pit lane and leave the field in the hands of Mitchell de Jong and Steven Wilson as they work down into the restart zone to kick things off through that final chicane. Green flag going in the air, and we are racing on the Roval. De Jong out to a big lead as they make the arc down into turn number 1, heartburn turn, if you will, for the first time, and that's going to be either a trouble spot or a good passing opportunity, depending on who you are, but you've got to be really, really careful working it through there as they work through the infield section of 3 and 4 for the first time.
Well, they do, and already trouble on that restart. Derek Bordeaux, way in the back of the field, got hit from behind as they worked it through the restart zone, and he was spun on the front straightaway. Contact between him and the Mahar machine, as it looks like he's already going to be well behind. Right there, you see the gap that he lost. Bordeaux, he started back in 29th, so didn't roll off completely well, but got tagged from behind, and unfortunately it's going to set him very far back with Jacob, no yellow flags tonight.
And that's the other big thing. When we go road racing, there are no yellows as we ride on board with your pole sitter and early race leader, Mitchell de Jong, through the backstretch bus stop chicane for the first time and into turns 13 and 14, oval 3 and 4. Behind him, Steven Wilson in the 4, trying to make some tracks forward in that Toyota Tundra for Total Advantage Motorsports. And they work off the banking and down through the 15, 16, 17 complex to complete 1 lap around the Roval, going 55 in total here tonight. But for Steven Wilson, the Total Advantage group, Michael Guerrilla, this is kind of a unique opportunity because we've seen Steven Wilson all season, but he's jumped in now on the train with Landon Huffman and what they've got going over there, and that's been interesting to follow. Landon's collected a pretty potent group to try and go after Road to Pro and put a good bunch of them in the top 20 here in points.
Yeah, indeed he does. That Total Advantage group has a very stout group with Steven leading the way so far in this race in the 2nd spot. But it's very interesting to see who all is a part of that group, because you also have Alan Bowes, former Coke Series driver in the number 21, riding in 7th position. You have Femi Olat. You have numerous drivers who are in both the top 3 splits that are capable of winning races and capable of running up front. So it's great to see that they've jumped on board for this partnership. It looks like it's gotten that whole group energized for the rest of this Road to Pro season.
That it has, and I'm glad you mentioned Alan Bowes because he's really been the ringleader of that, if you will, as we ride on board or rode on board for a moment there with Ryan Doucette coming right on the back of Seth DeMerchant, and that was a nervous moment coming through the bus stop a moment ago. But Bowes has been so solid, the last couple of years, Blake, and even when he's not been in Coke Series competition, we know any field he shows up in, he's got the talent, he's got a shot. Bowes, I think, is one that we've been watching, and I think kind of figured from the beginning was going to have a shot at the top 20 in points regardless.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Jacob. He's somebody that everyone had circled on their standings coming into this season, somebody that they would have to beat, and hopefully somebody that for these other competitors would sometimes see some bad luck. But you're exactly right. Bo's doing exactly that, running right where he started in the 7th position. And as these guys cycle out, you'll see them finally start to fan out. This is just a feeling out process right now, with everybody knowing that, no yellow flags right now. Obviously, these guys just want to get a couple of laps under their belt, and then they can finally see what kind of speed they have, what kind of setup that they brought to the racetrack compared to their competitors.
And we're seeing the field working through turn number 10 right now and out onto the back straightaway before that bus stop chicane. Ryan Doucette back there with Patriot Breyer LaPrade just behind. And I talked to Breyer just before we came on air here, currently riding in 11th, and he did a nice job to pick up a couple of spots early in the going. But Breyer told me this race is all about survival, and if we can get a top 10, he said, I'm going to be plenty happy with that. He's been in and out of top split through the first 5 races of this season, but back in tonight, and certainly that led for Billiard Supply number 19, sitting solidly so far as we've now completed 3 of 55 laps. And that's the big thing that I think about when it comes to this race and this course, Blake, is 55 laps may not sound like a lot, but it's a long race here at the Roval because these laps do extend for a while.
They certainly do. You'll see most of these guys around the whole night, they'll be running anywhere from about 78 to 80 seconds. So a minute and 20 is around where most of these guys will run. So this is a long race, going to take a little over an hour to complete easily. And you really even think about, that's about a typical length of a race. Homestead went caution-free. It was about the length of that, but it's a grueling 55 laps. There's no potential for a caution flag. There's no real portion that you can really take a rest. Maybe once you get onto the quad oval here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, you go through what is the oval turn 1 and 2. It's really about the only time, Jacob, that you really get to catch your breath on this course. The rest of the time, you're really having to focus.
We did circle Mitchell de Jong and say going in that he was the favorite, right? In 4 laps, he's opened up 4 laps, he's opened up 3.7 seconds over second running Steven Wilson. Michael Guerrilla, if that's not early dominance, I really don't know what is. Everybody circled him as the odds-on favorite tonight because of his Grand Prix World Championship success here on the service, and he is putting that skill on full display right now.
Indeed he is. I mean, I'm just watching him do some laps, and he's a little sideways here and there, but other than that, it just looks effortless to him. He's making great time right now. He's got about a 7/10 over Steve Wilson that last lap, and most of the field behind him are in the 20s, if not lower than that. So he's just pulling away. That he's on a different level right now. He's almost on that Bobby Zelensky level in the Coke Series. I mean, these two are very comparable in their driving, and it really shows as you see De Jong just keep pulling away as he goes to the backstretch chicane.
Pulling away, and the word effortless that Guerrilla just pointed out, Blake, I think that really spells out what it takes to be successful in a road race like this. Road racing is all about rhythm. I've never, this is changing, obviously. I've never driven on the service to date, and anybody that's heard me in the last couple weeks knows that's going to be changing soon. But I've watched enough road racing to know it is all about rhythm, and if you get into a good rhythm and get comfortable, you are just going to rock it away because it's about being smooth all the way through these 17 turns.
Well, and you're exactly right. It's so much of a mental challenge that when you think you're struggling or think you've had a bad couple of laps, you really don't have time to think about that. You just have to think forward to the next corner and hitting your marks. And the same can be said if you're riding high and feeling confident about yourself. All it takes is one slight mistake to lose that time that you've gained. So that's just the one thing, especially coming from somebody who is much more accustomed to going around ovals. When you talk about road racing, it's just so impressive what guys like Mitchell de Jong can really do out here, not only going fast, but be as consistent as they are, regardless of the road course you show up on.
So we just saw Trayton Lapsevich a moment ago, and I believe he and Derek Bordeaux got together, and we'll see if we can't get a replay of that in a moment. But I want to go back to Trayton Lapsevich for a minute, because the young Canadian, if we're talking about drivers that have a little bit, or at least are somewhat familiar with some road racing, a lot of what the NASCAR Pinty Series does in Canada is road course based. And while Trayton is not yet in the Pinty Series, he's scheduled to make his Pinty's debut when racing can return later this year. But Trayton has certainly grown up the last couple of years seeing a lot of what his older brother, Caden Lapsevich, did en route to winning the NASCAR Pinty Series championship a couple of years ago. So for the young 16-year-old, he's going to be trying to, I'm sure, apply some of those lessons here tonight. He currently sits pretty deep in the field after that spin outside the top 30, actually 32nd in the rundown right now. But it's a long race, and we know there's chaos that may yet abound, Blake. So he's got time to catch up if there are other mistakes to be made. But I know the other big thing is he's just glad to be back on one of our Podium Esports broadcasts. He was not happy the one week that we didn't find him in top split.
No, certainly. So everybody wants to get some airtime out here on Podium Esports. Bit of a development, though. Somebody has made an unscheduled green flag pit stop, and I believe he may be pulling it behind the wall. The Oreo Chevrolet of Brad Mahar. He is sitting here in his pit box, and it just looked like he was slowing on the apron in 3 and 4, and eventually it came down pit road. And it looks like, Jacob, he may have already called it quits. That's one of kind of the bad things about being involved in an accident so early on in this race without the help of a yellow flag. If that truck is damaged, aside from just a lot of accidents happening in front of you, there's really nothing you can do about making up those spots. So it looks like Mahar, as he's here on pit road, think he may have retired and already decided to call it quits.
Driver 15, I want to go back to you, since at least the Roval has made an appearance on the Coke Series schedule in the past. If we're talking about tire wear versus fuel, which is more important to be monitoring over the course of this green flag run, and when are you going to make your pit stop in this race, or is there a preference?
Obviously, I think for these guys, they should be more determinant on their tire wear, because that's going to be the biggest factor in how their performance is throughout the run. Because if you just wear off your rear tires really early, you're going to fall back really easily and be sliding all over the place, as you can see a few drivers do throughout the field. But fuel should be an issue throughout this run. Usually you want to split it in half, so 55 laps, you want to cut that down to 27. If you're a little bit further back or you're behind somebody, you want to undercut them a lap or two. It's very viable to do that, but the 2-stop just won't really do that much for you, so the 1-stop is going to be premium. But overall, just more likely focus on tires, because that'll enhance or combat your performance throughout the race.
I think the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now, Blake, is that Mitchell de Jong, who started on the pole, out-qualified everybody by 0.6 of a second in qualifying, and he is already running laps that are almost 2 seconds slower than what he qualified. And I question whether that's as much 2 seconds of fall off, or it's just he outshot everybody so much in qualifying that it's making the quote-unquote fall off number look a little bit deceiving. But even at that, we're probably, I don't know, about a second off what what most of the qualifying laps were, and we're already only 9 laps into this race.
Well, I think that's the case, Jacob, is, these guys, especially De Jong out here, he's got such a remarkable lead right now. He doesn't really have to push it that hard. All he has to do is just mind his business, keep the 4 tires on the racetrack, and he's still pulling the other drivers who were within 10 seconds, that being Steven Wilson in second and Donovan Strauss in the 3rd spot. But De Jong right now just being smooth as possible, but even as I'm looking kind of at his onboard shot right now, there's really no panic. He's just being cool, calm, and consistent, and that's exactly what we've come to understand, the type of driver that he is.
He leads Steven Wilson by 7 seconds on the road with 9 of 55 laps complete. Donovan Strauss is third. Jake Matheson is fourth. Jarrett Liebert fifth. Braden Boulos, Alan Bowes, Daniel Roper, Seth DeMerchant, Ryan Doucette, the points leader, completing the top 10. And other than Doucette, the top 9 qualifiers in some combination run in the top 9 spots right now. That's another thing. Aside from the pit strategy and potential undercuts, Michael Guerrilla, track position is king. I'll say it again, is king at the Roval.
Indeed it is, Jacob. I mean, I know last year for me it was difficult passing because there's very little passing zones on the track. Obviously, you have the high-speed chicanes on the backstretch and the front stretch, but aside from that, there's really not a lot of passing you can make unless somebody makes a mistake. For example, you have this big train start with Jarrett Liebert on back. They're separated from 5th back to about 12th, about 5 seconds apart from each other. So, I mean, you can see they're starting to bunch up behind Liebert where you have Braden Boulos, Alan Bowes, Daniel Roper, and Seth DeMerchant all kind of stacked up right there. So, I mean, you kind of just are waiting for someone to make a mistake unless your car is just that much better than everybody else.
And that's going to be the key, isn't it, as we come to complete 10 of 55 laps this time by. And we do see that train that Guerrilla talked about as we go on board for a lap down into turn 1, Heartburn turn, with Horizon driver Seth DeMerchant, who currently runs right where he started in the 9th position. DeMerchant in that Toyota Tundra trying to make some tracks forward in his familiar number 57. But Seth currently a little bit stuck. Daniel Roper up the road a couple of truck lengths ahead of him, and as we mentioned, leading this train right now, Jarrett Liebert, but he is some 15 seconds, Blake McCandless, behind race leader Mitchell DeJong, who continues to be about a half second quicker every lap compared to the rest of the field. Liebert, though, as Guerrilla mentioned, there's not a lot of passing zones here at the Roval, so if you're leading a train and you play just enough defense to be dangerous, you can probably hold the track position pretty well.
Hey, that's exactly what Liebert's doing as they'll work it down here into the backstretch chicane. Obviously, somewhat newer chicane as Liebert, here you see it, Jacob gets a little bit loose there, and that's going to be the real concern for these drivers as they look to make a long run. Most of these guys, they're looking at making this a one-stop race, so they're going to be coming down pit road probably around lap 27 or 28. We're not even halfway through a green flag run, and you're starting to see that across a couple of trucks, a couple of different teams, is that those rear tires are starting to lose a ton of grip. That's exactly what these drivers have prepared for, and the guys who are able to really run this course without abusing those rear tires, you're going to see guys like that making their way forward. One driver I'm looking at already is Casey Tucker, who started all the way back in the 31st position. We talk about how important track position is. You can't really get any worse than that, not pulling a qualifying time down, but he's moved up 8 spots and has kind of caught this pack in front of him that we'll call it about 6 or 7 trucks that are all stacked up behind Kenny Brady. But somebody like that who's going to kind of bide his time and work with that long run, that somebody like Tucker can go up there and pass some guys if he's taking care of those Goodyear Eagles.
Side by side through turn 10, the train has finally started to pass Jarrett Liebert by. He runs up high and is starting to get overhauled by 2, make it 3. Daniel Roper goes by, drop Liebert from 5th back to 8th, and he may lose that position as DeMerchant tries to work his way through that bus stop chicane and get a run to the inside through turn 13. There goes DeMerchant down to the inside of the banking. He'll get clear in turn 14, oval 4, as they come onto that front stretch chicane, the final 15, 16, 17 complex. So I believe a little bit of patience finally wore thin on the part of Boulos, Bowes, Roper, DeMerchant, and they have finally found their way through and really dropped Liebert back now to the fringes of the top 10.
And Liebert's fallen back, and he'll fall into the clutches of what is currently our points leader in Ryan Doucette, and won a couple of races that he's had. Started it off by winning the Rock and has really just been solid and consistent ever since. Started 12th in this one, but if there's one thing about Ryan Doucette, it's that long-run speed that he's really been able to capitalize on against a couple of these guys throughout this season. And right now, Doucette is on the march forward as it looks like that 17 truck just ailing on those worn-out rear tires.
Indeed, he's starting to fall back pretty heavily now from where he started in position number 6. We look on board forward at the points leader Ryan Doucette from the roof cam of the Zach Nichols machine, and they're going to go at it for the 10th position. Nichols trying to look down to the inside, coming into the bus stop, and that'll be driver's right. Oh, and Doucette overshot it. Doucette overshot the chicane. That screws up Nichols on the exit and allows Briar LaPrade through for the 11th spot. So a big mistake for Ryan Doucette, gets way off in the paint, and that is costly, Michael Guerrilla. As here comes LaPrade looking for the position now on Doucette as he's really overshot the curbs now.
Yeah, that's 2 chicanes in a row now he's missed, and now those front tires are really warm, so he's going to get back in line right behind Zach Nichols in the 12th spot and kind of cool those tires down. But yeah, that's just one of the products of these chicanes, especially on the backstretches. The entry may look very enticing and very open, but then as soon as you get to the center of the corner, it just tightens up, and these trucks have nowhere to go, and the outside wall comes up on you really quickly. So that's where it just gets really tight and really compact, and it really shows how tight this track is.
Getting a look at the Friends of Jacqueline Chris Kyle Frog Foundation number 10 of Caden Honeycutt. That Toyota Tundra looks like it has some pretty good front end nose damage to the 10. For Honeycutt, we saw it on the onboard as he kicks the truck way sideways coming into oval 1 and 2, turns 9 and 10. So Honeycutt's been into the back end of some other truck on this race course, but he rides right now in the 13th position as the Doucette truck has shuffled back a little bit. Guerrilla, I want to go back to you because anybody that watched the Roval race last fall in real life knows that if you overshot one of the chicanes or went off course, so to speak, there were stop and hold penalties applied by race officials. How does it differ for those who may not have seen the Roval on iRacing compared to what we saw assessed in real life?
So iRacing has a standard penalty based on how severely you cut the corner. So if, like, for instance, when Doucette had to cut the chicane on the backstretch, he probably had like maybe a quarter-second slowdown penalty to where he had to give up time to the penalty. But it's not as severe as a stop and go. Most of the one in the last chicane would probably be about a second or so. That's why he probably fell back in line and let those guys go. But it's not as severe as it would be in real life, which is a blessing, because if you cut those chicanes and had to stop, you'd lose at least 7-8 spots. So it's really good for these drivers that they can mess up and not pay such a price.
Working 15 laps complete of 55 as we get a look now at Briar LaPrade and Zach Nichols, who ride 10th and 11th on board with Nichols, and that's going to be the battle for the final spot inside the top 10 as it runs. Looking ahead at the Ledford Village Supply Toyota Tundra, LaPrade losing some time here as Nichols got a good run through that chicane as they work into turns 13 and 14 and off the banking towards the front straightaway. So he's going to be trying to hang on a little bit for Lockdown Racing as you look back at Nichols, and LaPrade going to come back to the line, hop the curbs, and hang on as we're now 15 laps complete and 40 laps to go. You're not missing a thing out front, I promise you. Mitchell DeJong is gone to the tune of 11 seconds over Steven Wilson and just making that look so easy. Donovan Strauss in third. Jake Matheson has settled in fourth. Braden Boulos is fifth. Bose, Roper, DeMerchant, Liebert, and LaPrade right now has the final spot in the top 10. But this has turned into a good little battle, Blake McCandless. Zach Nichols in that 32 is not letting Patriot Briar get off easily, applying some pretty good pressure for 16 laps into this race.
It really has, and that's not only the battle for 10th. That miscue by Ryan Doucette has really caused about, let's say, about a 6 or 7 car jam up here right outside the top 10 is now LaPrade able to scoot away just a little bit, but directly behind Nichols is a pretty healthy battle for position number 12. Ryan Doucette, Honeycutt, Carson Hocevar, he just made his way by Garrett Maines for the 14th spot. But these trucks rather, kind of bunched up here because of that little bit of contact, and The one thing that I'm looking at this battle, Jacob, that I'm probably most surprised about is the amount of nose damage on Caden Honeycutt's machine and how he's still able to keep up. I know at Atlanta, Brad Mahar got into the outside wall. I barely nicked him. It was only 10 seconds of optional damage, and all of a sudden, I was forced to come down to pit road to not overheat that truck. So Caden Honeycutt, with how bent up the nose on that Toyota Tundra is, very lucky that he's still able, it looks like he's retained most of his speed. He's still running up here in the 13th position. So a lucky call for the driver of that machine that has not hurt him any further.
And that damage goes all the way back to the opening lap. He had a coming together with Daniel Roper for position right at they started nose to tail, Roper in 8th and Honeycutt in 10th. So that I would anticipate the run down to turn 1 was where that started as we work lap number 17 of 55. And shockingly, this is the first time I'll have said this all night long. Last time by, Steven Wilson was about 1/10 of a second faster than Mitchell DeJong. That's not going to do you a whole lot of good when you're 11 seconds back of the race leader, but it's something. It's something at least to mention here as we come to the conclusion of lap number 17, and he just gave up 0.6 there. So you see, it's a lot of ebb and flow as we work around the 17 turns that make up the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. 29 trucks on the lead lap. The last of those is Brian Blackford as it sits. And what we're going to do is take a quick opportunity to go ahead and take a timeout, do a little business. You won't miss a thing because we're going to go side by side. And when we return, we'll have more action from round 5 of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro from the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is Podium Esports, and we'll be back in just a moment. I'm going to reiterate as we come back out of break that may be one of my favorite features that we've been able to add with Podium Esports as Caden Honeycutt goes goes for a long slide, and I was sure that truck was going around about turn 5, 6 before we worked through 7 and then out onto the banking. I don't know how he saved that. Anyhow, welcome back from that side-by-side commercial break to a whole lot of action during round 5 of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, live on Podium Esports. Jacob Seelman, Blake McCandless, Michael Guerrilla with you in the broadcast booth as we are 20 of 55 laps into Rovaling, if you will. And for Caden Honeycutt, who had worked his way up to 13th position, that is going to cost some time. It's going to cost perhaps a position or two. And ahead of him, however, Carson Hocevar has caught 11th running and championship leader Ryan Doucette, and that may yet be a battle for position as we work on to lap number 21. So we're closing in on the halfway point of this race, and of the drivers towards the front of the field, nobody has really impressed me more, Blake McCandless, than Hocevar, the young teenager out of Michigan who spent time in late models, in the ARCA Menard series, and most recently he's done a nice job on this Road to Pro so far as he has tracked down both Ryan Doucette and Jarrett Liebert and may have a shot after starting 18th at a top 10 running position here.
Well, and the question is going to be whether he can find the way around these guys before he has to come down for green flag pit stops. Obviously, those are not too far away, but no doubt about it that Carolina SimWorks Chevrolet Silverado definitely has some long-run speed around these guys. As now you see Liebert, he'll surrender that position right there, so move Hocevar up to 11th. Now it's Doucette that has a claim on the top 10.
I believe, Michael Guerrilla, that Jarrett Liebert is a classic case of a driver who has dropped anchor and is trying to survive on tires that don't really want to cooperate until pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where once they get hot, you just really can't get them back. And this is a track where the tires really don't get a break except for on the oval. But once you get those tires hot to the infield, especially on the very start of it through turn 1 as we're going through right here, it's just impossible to get them back. And he's just trying to hang on to what he's got. He's still running the relatively good spot in 12th, but he's got Garrett Maines and Ryan Kuhn behind him in 13th and 14th. So, I mean, if he wants to let them go, he's got a nice little spot behind him just ahead of Caden Honeycutt, who's struggling a little bit worse. But, I mean, he can hang on to that spot until pit stops coming up here in about 5 or 6 laps.
Indeed, we do expect pit stops right around the halfway point of this race for those who are making it a one-stop strategy. And we pretty much expect that it's going to be a one-stop strategy for everybody unless disaster strikes for somebody like Briar LaPrade, who had to come to pit road early. Carolina SimWorks entry, though, the 40 of Carson Hocevar is really laying the pressure on in that Chevrolet Silverado to the back of the 7 of Ryan Doucette. That's going to be a battle for position, and I believe they made contact coming up off the banking onto the back straightaway of turn number 10 down to the backstretch chicane. Hocevar shot out of a cannon, and he'll take a top 10 position over Doucette. But we may have to get a replay because I'm not convinced there wasn't a little bit of contact as quick as Doucette shot out to the wall, Blake.
It was definitely close, but I think it may have been Doucette saying, hey, I know you're faster than me. I'm just going to go ahead and give you this position. Nevertheless, it allows Hocevar to move up inside the top 10, running just a little bit off the pace of our race leader in Mitchell DeJong. So Hocevar, a nice drive up into the top 10 as a couple of drivers. How about Garrett Maines, who's kind of found his way up near the upper echelons of the top 10 as well, as he has a little bit of long run speed in that Legacy Esports Toyota. He's now on the back bumper of Ryan Doucette. We were talking about Doucette moving forward. Now it looks like perhaps in tow with his teammate and Jarrett Liebert, perhaps that race truck's just dropped anchor.
Yeah, the Viper Graphics number 7 really struggling as it sits, as Doucette nearly gets a bump from the deuce of Garrett Maines. Meanwhile, Carson Hocevar has driven off from this bunch a little bit as he is some 3 seconds behind 9th place Zach Nichols. But you see just how big the gap is back as Hocevar has worked his way forward and will now work into the chicane here on the back stretch and back towards turns 13 and 14. So Hocevar, the biggest mover among the top 10, he's come from 18th to 10th. The biggest mover overall, the driver that you shouted out to, Blake, a little bit earlier, Casey Tucker, who has climbed from 31st all the way up to 19th on the road. And we are seeing a battle a little bit further back in the field, as there is the Casey Tucker entry, as he may have just picked off one more spot here in the form of Kenny Brady as they work across the line. In fact, he's picked off 2 in the last lap, Kenny Brady, and that was Dylan Rafferty that he just drove by coming across the line. So move Casey Tucker from 31st to 17th, and you have to wonder, Michael Guerrilla, if he had been able to put down a qualifying lap, what might have been, and if there might not be a case for him being the one to have something for Mitchell DeJong. Tucker has clawed through this field.
Yeah, Tucker's been having a rampant pace as now he's up to 17th, searching on the back bumper of Drew Freenage, but he's running comparable lap times to Alan Bowes in 5th, Jake Matheson, basically everyone in the top 5. So, I mean, he had the pace. If he put a qualifying lap down, he definitely would have been able to contend for at least the top 5, if not higher than that. But he's still making a really strong march back up towards the front. He's honestly not that far away back from a top 15. Jared Liebert's in 14th, and he's only a few seconds up the road struggling on those tires. So if Tucker can execute a pretty good pit cycle here, he can gain a few seconds and maybe have a chance at the top 10 here.
So we'll give you an update as we approach halfway on where the top 5 are and how they fall in comparison to the race leader. Mitchell DeJong leads it going away. That's not an exaggeration. He is in a world where we're running 1 minute and 22-second laps. He is 16 seconds clear of Steven Wilson. That is almost 20% of this 17-turn Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Donovan Strauss is second, Donovan Strauss is third, some 21 seconds back of the race leader. Jake Matheson sits fourth, 25 seconds and change back, and Alan Bowes is fifth, 26 seconds and change back. It is a long way for anybody not named Mitchell DeJong, but Alan Bowes, who we've circled so many times in the first handful of races of this season, who's had speed, Blake, who hasn't necessarily had the luck, finally looks like getting a really representative run, and he is knocking on the back bumper of Jake Matheson's 52. This is the race for 4th.
And we'll see Bowes right here as we'll work it onto the front stretch. So you have to be really careful here to time your pass correctly. He allows Matheson to dive it in. Bowes looking for the exit, just not able to keep the throttle down. And that's what Michael was alluding to earlier, Jacob, with you can be a little bit faster than that truck in front of you, but until they're ailing enough, it's just hard to find those opportunities to try and make a pass, especially with how slick it is out here. Track temperature now at 105, although there's a little bit of cloud cover that'll be helping these drivers, especially towards the end of this. But there you even see it out of Bowes. He has a little bit of speed, but with these tires and how they're ailing right now, it's just difficult to make a pass. So, but Matheson's going to run off the racetrack. He's going to try to save it as he's able to work his way back up onto the banking here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Matheson's going to lose 2 spots now as Roper's able to take advantage. And how about Seth the Merchant? He's been running 7th for the majority of this race. He may have an opportunity to go up and grab 6th.
So for Matheson, who was 4th a moment ago, a big slide through turns 5 and 6. He goes way off in the grass. Michael Guerrilla, impressive job by Matheson not to wad the car up into the wall there, or wad the truck up into the wall there. But he now sits back, 2 spots and maybe soon to be 3 if DeMerchant can get to his bumper from where he was a moment ago. And it's those kinds of mental mistakes, we'll call them, that can really cost you at this racetrack.
Yeah, it's really easy to make mistakes here at the Charlotte Roval, but if I was Matheson right there, I would have pitted. I just had a really bad lap. My tires are shot right now. I'm a few seconds back behind some traffic of Roper and Bowes, so I would have pitted right there if I was Matheson to try and undercut them as we're working on lap 27. That's just personally what I would have done there, but he's still holding on that 6th spot, and he's still sitting on the back bumper of Daniel Roper. So yeah, that was a really good save. That double right-hander heading up to the very highest point on the track is very treacherous to save, especially when you get off in that grass. You send a little too much speed in there, and as soon as you get on that paint, it's just like ice. You're going straight towards that wall.
Speaking of pitting, several trucks doing so this last time by as we start lap 27. Garrett Maines was down for service. Casey Tucker came down for service, and a couple more trucks as well. Your race leader, Mitchell DeJong, has not yet come down for service. He will cross the stripe to complete 27 laps. Next time by, we will be halfway home, and he can't, it's not a case where you can pit and not lose the lead if you're Mitchell DeJong, but realistically, even if you pit, you're going to come out about third. And that's how big of a gap he has put up over everybody. And it is, I am amazed right now. We talk about the virtual racing school coaches as being some of the best in the business when you look at Ray Alfalla, four-time eNASCAR Coke Series champion, Keegan Leahy, who won the Coke Series opener at Daytona earlier this year, and then on the road racing side, Blake McCandless, if you didn't know it before, everybody knows it now. There is nobody better to A, learn from, and B, ultimately get beat by, as we're seeing right now, than this man right here.
Well, and this was a worry of a lot of these drivers was Mitchell DeJong. Obviously, he's been in the race for this Road to Pro season for all 4 races up to this point, but he didn't have the I rating to be up here in the top split. And of course, he finally got it up to where he was going to be able to contend in this race. And obviously, once we get to an oval, you can't overlook him. But as soon as we get to these road courses, and we have 2 of them, obviously one of them being run today at the Charlotte Roval, we'll also make a trip to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And I hate to say it, Jacob, but with DeJong and the I rating that he's accumulated and the fact that he's probably going to be sticking around for a while, he may have a win almost sealed up here. Of course, not even halfway. Don't know what could happen with his machine, but you have to say he's a favorite to not only bring it home today, but also a couple of weeks from now when we go to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. He's no doubt going to be the favorite to win that one as well.
No doubt, and we are seeing right now some of the drivers who have pitted and have much, much, much fresher rubber than Mitchell DeJong working their way past him right now as we just crossed the halfway point, and we're going to hold off on our iRacing midway race break until after pit stops. Carson Hocevar, right at the halfway point, comes to pit road from 10th. He had worked, or actually from 9th, he had worked his way solidly through the field. Ryan Doucette, Jarrett Liebert, Caden Honeycutt, several drivers on pit road right now, but Hocevar among them. I thought Doucette was on pit road. He must have just been on pit road 1 lap ago, but we know Hocevar just came in to complete his round of service, and that's the big shuffle right around halfway when you've got guys pitting, guys cycling through off pit road. It's very easy to lose track of the blend, Michael Guerrilla, and the blend itself for drivers coming off pit road back into the 2, 3, 4 section of this infield road course. That's where it gets very, very dicey as we see the race leader, Blake McCandless, Mitchell DeJong, finally hitting pit road as we work lap number 29.
Well, and he hits pit road, and like a veteran, didn't come down an even chance speeding on pit road entry. Of course, you don't really have anything to gain here by hot pitting here, so obviously DeJong smartly comes down pit road. He'll get 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, 2 cans of Sunoco fuel. He'll be down and away with what I assume will once again be the race lead, as he's well clear of Steven Wilson and Donovan Strauss, who had obviously come down a pit road a little bit earlier. But even Seth DeMerchant, who has finally made his way, he scored 2nd. He'll cycle back to about 7th or 8th once these pit stops are completed. But really no challenge right now for DeJong. He has the tires to do it, so now all he really has to do is just keep her between the lines, and looks like he's well on his way to winning this one.
Indeed, the Virtual Racing School number 23 Toyota Tundra back off onto the banking out of turn number 8 and into the main oval section of this Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. So he makes his pit stop with 26 laps to go, and here's a bit of a battle. Garrett Maines going at it with the 16 behind him. That is actually maybe Traffic, one of the Horizon trucks there, is Garrett Maines and Braden Boulos, sorry. So Boulos ran into some issues as they're cycling out, Bulos was third last time by. See, this is where it takes a minute because we get crossed up, Blake, because everybody's cycling through timing and scoring's trying to adjust. And I'm not sure if this is a sign of Bulos having a really rough pit stop or Maines having a really good pit stop, because Bulos was third last time by. Maines was, about 12th, and now they've cycled out next time by to be right nose to tail going through the backstretch chicane.
Well, that's right, Jacob. It's hard for us to tell with all the laps these guys are putting down, but right now it looks like Garrett Maines going to be able to get the better end of that battle for the time being, as, again, we continue to cycle through, as it was Bulos that was there on pit road, so he'll cycle back to position number 13. It'll be Maines who moves up to 10th. Actually, no, it'll be Bulos in 11th. So Garrett Maines will hold that final spot in the top 10.
So if we were discussing Mitchell DeJong's resume earlier, he was the inaugural iRacing Rallycross World Champion in 2018, finished second in Rallycross iRacing points in 2019. He ran 5 seasons of the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, the original Road Course World Championship, what's now the Porsche Esports Super Cup Series, and finished a best of second in points in 2018. And also has run 3 years of the VRS GT iRacing World Championship, third, and second in points in all 3 of those campaigns. So if you're not getting our drift, this man is arguably the best road racer currently active on the iRacing service from a resume standpoint. There are very few that I can think of, other than maybe Gregor Hutu, that are better than Mitchell DeJong at going left and right on the iRacing service. And now that we are officially past halfway and pretty well cycled through with our green flag pit stop cycle, we'll go ahead and run you down the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing from the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, the Cars Tour, and much, much more. All right, so let's run down the full field rundown as it sits. We know Mitchell DeJong is out front. He has been out front since the drop of the green flag. He is 15 seconds and counting up the road on Steven Wilson. Donovan Strauss is third. Fourth is Alan Bowes. Fifth right now is Briar LaPrade. And that right there is subject to change, I believe, because Briar had to pit a little bit sooner than everybody else, so he's somewhat off strategy. Daniel Roper is sixth. Jake Matheson sits seventh. Seth DeMerchant is eighth. Zach Nichols ninth, and Garrett Maines completes the top 10. Blake McCandless.
It'll be Braden Bolos in 11th. Ryan Doucette brings it home, or is right now in 12th. Drew Fearnaz is in 13th. Carson Hocevar in 14th. How about Casey Tucker up from 31st to 15th? Ryan Kuhn in 16th. Caden Honeycutt is in 17th. Jarrett Liebert in 18th. 19th is Dylan Rafferty, and 20th is Michael Finlayson.
Derek Bordeaux sits 21st, a little bit of a rebound after he had some troubles right off the green flag. 22nd is Kenny Brady. 23rd to Jacob Hall. Blake Neer is 24th, and Dylan Jones sits 25th. Brandon Houff is 26th. Brandon McKissick is 27th. Brian Blackford 28th. Nick Morris is 29th, and the last truck on the lead lap, Brad Mahar, is out of the
trouble for Caden Honeycutt, as he's now stopped broadside in the beginning of the road course section, and unfortunately for him, no caution flag. He's going to have to spin it around and get it going, but not before. He's lost a handful of spots. He's lost 8. He's back to 25th after that spin.
That spin was right between turns 4. That was the run from 4 up to 5. Very, very tricky spot. Just a quick update on the 3 trucks out of this race. Brad Mahar, 30th. Trayton Lapsevich, 31st. Will Norton, 32nd, and that's going to quickly conclude tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break with more than 80,000 drivers on the service and more than 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information information, visit iRacing.com today. And I'll amend that plug because we are now well over 6 figures on the service thanks to the recent world events and a boom in the platform. Steve Myers, I know, very, very proud a few weeks ago when we crossed that 100,000 user mark. So lots of good things going on here as we work 34 laps complete. It'll be 21 to go when leader Mitchell de Jong gets back to the start-finish line. The gap has grown now to almost 20 seconds over second-running Steven Wilson as we watch Seth DeMerchant, who rides in the 8th position, try to track down Jake Matheson. And Matheson has had to fend off a few charges from behind in this race, and going to have one more here as actually that's now the battle for 7th as they broke both in the last moments, disposed of Briar LaPrade.
Well, and Jake Matheson, as we were talking about earlier, so much of this race coming in was how you could fare in qualifying. And luckily for Matheson, although he started up in 3rd and has fallen back a couple of positions, this is a race where you can really hang your hat on that qualifying effort, even if you don't necessarily think you have that long race speed. This is a track where you can still escape with a top 10 just by virtue of that starting spot. So Matheson definitely has nothing to hang his hat about right now. And obviously DeMerchant has been in the top 10, and this has really been the story of his Road to Pro season so far, just being calm, consistent, running in the top 10, and I don't think we'd expect anything different from the former Cup Series driver.
Not at all. And, you know, that's been interesting to me. We'll bring Michael Guerrilla back in on this because we've talked about some of the talent that has been in the Coke Series in the past, you know, whether it was DWC or whether it was the days as the Peak Antifreeze Series. But guys like a Casey Tucker or a Brian Blackford or a Nick Morse or a Brandon Houff, who we know they're capable of being at the top level, but in a show of just how tough the Road to Pro is this year, you know, the only one I feel like we've talked about from that crop that has consistently been towards the front as we watch a battle for 11th and 12th between Garrett Maines and Braden Boulos. But really the only one of that past top-level talent that we've talked about every week, it seems like, is Alan Bowes, who rides 4th right now, Michael. And that's just, I think, proof of just how much deeper the field is even than when it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, you can even see it by some of these strength of fields as far as iRacing is concerned. I mean, nowadays you have to run just to be the top, but you have to be a high 6K iRating to even make it into the split. So it just shows the strength of the overall level of competition that is displayed tonight especially. But yeah, Bose and DeMerchant have been the two consistent ones that have had success on the sim before, both getting to that top level of sim racing on the oval side. But yeah, Bose has just been a very strong competitor. He's been very consistent with his total advantage, number 21 Silverado. But he just shows that even though he's been consistent, he just has other competition that's just as strong as him around him. And it shows how many people actually have a chance to make it to the Pro Series later this year.
19 laps to go. It'll be 18 to go when Mitchell de Jong gets back out of the infield road course and works his way back towards the front half of the course on the start-finish line. He is currently working his way on the run from 4 up to 5 here as we continue to watch Alan Bowes come through the front stretch chicane to the line. Bowes is 4th, and we're talking about de Jong already being in 6 and 7. If that illustrates just how far up the road some 31 seconds is as race leader Mitchell de Jong works his way into 9 and 10 and onto the back straightaway. So it'll be 18 laps to go when de Jong gets back to the line. There we'll pick up the race leader as he works down the back stretch into the bus stop. And for de Jong, it has been all business as all business as planned, we'll say. There have been no mistakes, no miscues. It's been as calm a Tuesday night drive as I think we could have expected or I've ever seen at this Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. So inside of 20 to go now, we're going to go side by side one more time, do a little bit more business, and we'll come back and bring you to the checkered flag here in round number 5 of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro. Mitchell de Jong leads Steven Wilson, Donovan Strauss, Alan Bowes, and Daniel Roper from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. This is Podium Esports. We're back with more right after this.
coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Aloma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Lowe. 4 wide at the stripe. For all he's with here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the top split for round 5 on the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro live from the virtual Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Jacob Seelman, Blake McCandless, and Michael Guerrilla in the broadcast booth as we count you down to the checkered flag. We are 39 laps in of 55 here at the 17-turn road course that is the Roval, comprising both the infield road course and sections of the mile-and-a-half quad oval at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and picking up a couple of battles on the racetrack right now, most notably for 6th place. We talked about this one before our most recent commercial break, a couple minutes before, but Seth DeMerchant has not let the back bumper of Jake Matheson's number 52 out of his sight. 52 versus 57, and Matheson, I feel like, has finally gotten to a point where he looks like he's starting to hang on Michael Guerrilla, and Seth DeMerchant ready to pounce. He may not be able to pick off any more than 6th, but he's at least trying to get Matheson before this race is over.
Yeah, Seth is definitely peeking around the back bumper of that 52 Silverado there, but Matheson is just kind of hanging on, kind of like we saw Liebert was doing the first run there. But yeah, definitely the Merchant is laying the heat to him now as he's just sitting on that back bumper as we go down towards the banking of turn 1 on the NASCAR oval. Yeah, the Merchant's been pretty consistent. He's been about a 10th or 2 up every single lap. He's just kind of patiently waiting for an opportunity to get by Madison. And then once again, that goes back to how tight this track is and how little passing there is. We'll see if he can make a move here as they're heading down the backstretch into the backstretch chicane. See if he makes a move or a dive. And now he's just going to sit right back on the bumper, just a little too far back. But the Merchant just kind of biding his time right there. Going to conserve his tires, see if Matheson makes a mistake.
Blake McCandless in a show of just how good Mitchell de Jong has been, and if we're wondering, not only is he one of the top road course sim racers in the world, he's also an X Games gold medalist. He's a Red Bull athlete. He's done just about everything, in terms of road racing, both esport and real life is concerned. He has finally started lapping trucks. He's put a lap on Dylan Jones, and even while he's lapping trucks, he is a second a lap faster almost than Steven Wilson. Is there anything that the VRS coach cannot do tonight? If there is, I haven't found it.
Well, I don't think I have either, Jacob. And there's just certain people like De Jong that, when you combine the talent that he's accumulated over the many things he's done across the real world and in sim racing, you combine that with, the amount of time and effort that these guys put into preparing these setups and testing and practicing all the different potential track states and weather and what have you. And you finally see it culminate in this. And obviously mostly everybody in this field, they've had to work hard, very hard to get their I ratings up here. And obviously any race they're going to test for pretty much after this Roval is completed, these guys are going to look forward to our next race at Michigan International Speedway, which takes place in 2 weeks. But that's how much preparation is necessary to really compete here in the top split and try to get these good finishes. So when you combine all that natural talent and all the preparation that a guy like Mitchell de Jong puts in this, you really can't be surprised. But it still is shocking that with the level of talent that is out here, he is still just spanking these guys out here.
That's an understatement. I would be hard pressed to find a show of dominance. I mean, we've seen impressive performances, and the name Michael Guerrilla that comes to mind for me when it comes to impressive road course performances of late is Bobby Zalenski and what he's done in the Coca-Cola series. But de Jong, good grief, I don't think I've ever seen a performance quite as sterling as this one from start to finish. I mean, there is no doubt who the fastest truck has been. There's been no doubt at the front of the field. It's almost like he's not even trying to be fast. He just is.
Yeah, it looks like it's just really natural to him. As I said earlier, it is very comparable to Bobby Zalenski, who is also a Coke Series driver who's trying to compete in the Porsche Cup Series as well on the road side of things. But yeah, de Jong is just going out for a Sunday drive, like you said, just making it really consistent, having no real issues trying to push the truck at anything at all. But yeah, it's just impressive to see as he's now got a whopping 23-second lead over Steven Wilson in second place. But yeah, it's really impressive to see a dominance like this, especially leading every single lap with just a few laps to go in this race.
If you were watching a moment ago as we were talking about the race leader, you saw Carson Hocevar make quick work of Garrett Maines to move back into a top 10 position, as we also saw a view from Dylan Rafferty, who is among those hanging on to the tail end of the lead lap. Rafferty back there about the 16th or 17th position. There's the Hocevar and Maines battle. We'll pick it up, and I thought Carson was going to really drive away from Garrett. Garrett's been able to stay with him about 3 or 4 truck lengths back here with 13 laps to go, but that's a battle for 10th place. And Garrett in the Legacy Esports number 2 is, I'm not going to say right there. I think Hocevar, Blake, has the faster truck, but Maines has at least made him work for that top 10 spot.
He certainly has, but the one guy I'm watching, I know we've mentioned him a couple of times tonight, but I can't keep forgetting to bring him up, is Casey Tucker. He has started to creep forward and is slowly starting to catch this 5-truck battle right at the outside of the top 10. And just, we talked about how important track position was, and qualifying is now a little bit of a slip up here as Maines tried to look around Hocevar for just a moment there. But Tucker is just being so impressive, running times that are just off of what de Jong is running. So it's on one hand, it stinks that he didn't get the qualifying time and that I'm sure he would have liked to get, but he is still up here in 14th. That is more than enough points you would need on average to be competing for the top 20, and now he has another chance to go up here and maybe pass another handful of trucks.
And that's impressive for Casey Tucker, who really has, as we mentioned, done about as sterling a job as de Jong has out front. Casey's done it working through traffic, and we see this battle continuing between Hocevar, Garrett Maines, and Ryan Kuhn. 3 trucks within a second, and it may be 4 trucks within a second in a moment, because Ryan Doucette is on the tail of this battle for 10th, 11th, and 12th as well. It's Hocevar in the 40, the 2 of Maines, the 10 of Ryan Kuhn, and the 7 of Ryan Doucette. And I want to give a shout out to Ryan Kuhn too for another solid run tonight here in Top Split. Of course, Blake, he's coming off a big win from the virtual Oxford Plains Speedway with the Rowdy Energy Super Select Series over the weekend. And we asked him over the weekend if he was going to convert the momentum into a solid run, and he was nervous about this Roval. But I'd say from 15th to at least improve a couple spots to 12th right now, doing a pretty nice job of it tonight.
Well, and that's certainly the case, Jacob. The biggest thing that if you talk to a lot of these drivers that are really looking forward and really looking to try to get in this top 20, the one thing they'll tell you is not necessarily that it's those strong runs that'll get you in the top 20. It's not having terrible runs, not having runs like I had at Homestead, where I forgot to check my fuel and gave up about a top 5 finish there at Homestead Miami Speedway. It's not necessarily those great runs, and obviously you want as many points to try and eat up those top 5s as much as you can. But if you can just hang around there and every single week just be knocking on the door of the top 15 and and sticking around like Ryan Kuhn is here, that's what's going to get you into the top 20 when this thing is all said and done. Not necessarily going up there and winning every week, but just being consistent and not having those drop weeks is what will help you the most.
So if we're looking at drivers that maybe we think probably that Ryan Doucette has carried a big enough points lead coming in that he'll be able to maintain the points lead leaving tonight, regardless of what happens. Now, with that said, Brad Wright, we've not called his name because he is not in top split tonight, but we called Zach Nichols' name earlier. He currently rides in 8th and Doucette in 13th, but Nichols was some 136 points back of the lead coming in tonight. So you don't think that that would necessarily change hands. But Matheson, almost 200 points back, even though he's been running pretty solidly tonight and a little bit ahead of Ryan Doucette. But it's somebody like a Mitchell DeJong who was 9th in points and decently in good shape. But a run like this tonight will catapult him forward a couple of spots in points. Somebody like DeMerchant, who's running 6th and is 12th in points, he's having a great run. Or, if you look back a little further, say, close to the top, close to the 20, Braden Boulos was a name that we talked about early. He's right on the cut line right now. Blake in 20th in points with 2 markers over Adam Gilliland. Boulos is having a really good top 10 run tonight. It's like you talked about, not having a bad run. That's what's going to get it done, and especially for somebody like Braden Boulos, who is borderline right now, he needed a run like this tonight.
Oh, he certainly did, and if anything, he's got nothing to worry about but himself because of how much time. It's about 3 seconds up to Zach Nichols. It's about another 3.5 seconds back to Carson Hocevar. So right now, Boulos not having to worry about quite as much as the rest of our competition. And there's one more name I want to mention about the incredible rebound. This driver was spun on lap 1. You think about all the preparation you've done the last 2 weeks trying to get ready for this race, and all of a sudden you see it go all out the window after getting spun on the restart, not even being able to take the green flag. But Derek Bordeaux has managed to find his way up into the top 15, started 29th and started what was about 5 or 6 seconds behind the entire field, had some damage to boot with that, and has done a tremendous job at trying to salvage a good point stay here. So Derek Bordeaux, certainly somebody we want to shout out because he definitely deserves to get some credit as to how he's battled through this one.
And how important could that be for the Canadian? We don't have an answer yet, but he came in 51st in points tonight, and even to rally back to a top 15 run could be very, very critical to success in the long run. We're inside of 10 laps to go. It's 8 laps to go. And when you talk about rallies, there's the leader, Mitchell DeJong, but the guy we've been talking about all night long, Casey Tucker, sitting 14th. He has run down this pack ahead of him. In fact, he gets a run off the exit of the backstretch chicane, gets to the inside of the championship leader, dispatches Ryan Doucette. Casey Tucker plus 18 from 31st now to 13th, and he could have a shot. He can see a top 10 finish in Carson Hocevar about 2 seconds up the road, Blake. This is not over. If Casey Tucker can come from 31st to 10th, I would call that a win tonight for him.
Well, and again, you look at the lap times as they continue to scroll in. He's not losing a lot on Mitchell DeJong. Doesn't have quite the speed that he has, but of course, DeJong has the advantage of clean air, not being around a whole bunch of traffic, and obviously probably pit a couple of laps after these guys because he wasn't concerned about having to split this directly halfway. So no doubt Casey Tucker, everybody there at Slip Angle Motorsports brought one heck of a setup here tonight because obviously Tucker, to be able to make the moves that he has, not only is a fast truck, but a driver that is mentally aware of when to make passes and how to make their way through this field. So a great job by that team and this driver to try and work his way up. And again, he's still got a little bit of work to do to try and run down Kuhn, Maines, and Hocevar.
I was trying to find him in points, and I actually didn't go far enough. Casey Tucker came into tonight 113th 14th in the championship. You want to talk about a run that may be able to vault him somewhat forward. A run like this tonight where you start deep and can make your way up through the field and have a shot even at a top 10 in top split. That's going to pay some dividends for the driver from Georgia. So Casey, this is a night he desperately needed. I know we've got 9 races to go after tonight still, Michael Guerrilla, but still, you're counting points with every single lap and every single start. And for Casey Tucker, this is big. Another big position here is we see Matheson and Zach Nichols. I've called Zach Nichols' name a couple times tonight, and he's just quietly picked them off 1 or 2 at a time. Nichols, though, having a shot at 7th here with 6 to go.
AFC Matheson is just kind of a little bit of trouble there, holding off Zach Nichols for that 7th spot. We'll see how it plays out as they head down the backstretch. But yeah, you're mentioning Tucker basically being a little bit lower the points than most of these guys in this split are, and just having a good run here. It's going to be really crucial to his points. I mean, it may not be a lot of points considering you're in 13th comparably to those who are in lower splits who are winning those races, but it's still a huge number nonetheless. And think if you were 31st and you get into an incident on lap 1, like we saw Derek Bordeaux, who knows if you recover in time. So it's really crucial for those guys, for Bordeaux and Tucker, to have rebounds. And we're still watching this battle between Matheson and Zach Nichols as they head off into turn 1. That time by Zach Nichols, 0.3 quicker than Matheson, who's starting to struggle here just a little bit as they head down into the double right-hander. And here goes Nichols down the inside.
Oh, and he overcooked it. He overcooked it on the run to turn 3. Now they come off 4, and he's going to have to reset and try it all over again as they head down that short straightaway to turn 5. They'll make that, head into the right-hander for 6, and then the double left of 7 and 8 back out onto the banking. He was right there. I think he thought maybe he could get to the bumper and wiggle him up a little bit, Blake, but now Zach Nichols having to reset, do all that work again as they come up onto the banking.
Well, and you're right. He locked up those right side tires trying to make the move right there. And again, I don't think that it's lost on him that Nichols has the faster race truck right now. Matheson, as we've seen, a couple of these Nexus Esports cars have really struggled later in the run with some rear grip. So Nichols just has to be smart here. Will still come around this time. He'll have 5 more laps to try and complete this pass. But also, the last thing you don't want to do this late in the race is get together, get contact. So a smart move there by Nichols, overshot the corner, but was able to keep his and Matheson's truck from coming together, because obviously the last thing that either one of those drivers want is to sit broadside, get spun, and lose, what could be 6, 7, 8 spots here late in the going. Because even if Matheson is ailing right now, all he has to do is hold on here. Even if he gives up a spot, still an 8th place finish. Definitely something to write home about.
Yeah, we were talking about those guys having 5 more laps. They do have 5 more laps, but you were looking at 5 to go before they got to the line on your screen, because that is just how far Mitchell de Jong is ahead of everybody. These guys are almost an entire lap behind the race leader. From 1st to 10th, it's a minute, and these laps right now are 1 minute and 21 seconds. So you're talking 2/3 of a lap these battles are behind your race leader, who's already inside of 4 laps to go. This battle on your screen is Ryan Kuhn versus Garrett Maines in a battle of Virginia versus New England. Kuhn on the back bumper, and Maines throws the block up the back straightaway. That's the fight for 11th on the road, and there is Casey Tucker. He has caught these 2 from 13th and is going to make it a 3-truck battle coming to 4 to go.
Well, again, it's crucial here late in the going, not overshooting this front stretch chicane right here. Good opportunity for Tucker to try and make up some ground, but as he pulls up to the back bumper of Kuhn, this is when it's going to be really hard to pass, although Tucker got a pretty good exit there as they cross the stripe. Tucker in the heartburn turn, trying to dig on both Kuhn and Maines, who are both loose in front of him.
So they're working through turn number 2 here, down the straightaway, under the bridge to turn 3. They'll make the right-hander, and then they'll head towards turn 4, another right-hander, and have that short straightaway run up to 5. Maines goes a little bit wide, opens the door for Kuhn, who is not able to capitalize because he's playing defense on Tucker. They head for turn 6, and then it'll be the double left to 7 and 8. Meanwhile, race leader Mitchell de Jong already 3 laps to go as we watch these drivers exit the infield section to turns 9 and 10 up on the banking. That's 11th, 12th, and 13th place.
And as they get back up again, being able to use a little bit of the draft here, it's not near as effective, obviously, with these guys only reaching probably about, call it 145, 150 miles an hour max on the back straightaway. But there you see Tucker. Kuhn in front of him is loose, and it looks like Kuhn may think better of it, and he's going to surrender the spot to Casey Tucker. So move Tucker up into the 12th spot. And now, of course, he has a couple of laps remaining, call it 3, to try and chase down Garrett Maines.
Yeah, this battle has held up Casey Tucker. I don't think he's quite going to get to the top 10. He may have a shot at Maines for the 11th spot there. I guess it's not totally out of the question, but I think Tucker would have to get past Maines really, really quickly here. He's got 3 laps to do it, I guess we'll say, so it's not impossible, but I do think he's going to have to get past Maines somewhere here on this lap if he's going to have a shot to run down Hocevar, who's almost 2 seconds ahead of this battle for what will be the 11th position. Mitchell DeJong is inside, 2 laps to go now. We'll pick up the race leader actually, we'll go ahead and pick up the race leader, show you where he's at for a brief moment. We'll pick him back up on the white flag. Want to go back to this battle for 11th place. It's the best battle on the racetrack right now. Maines and Tucker, as they work onto the banking, still with about 2.5 laps to go, separated by 2, maybe 3 truck lengths as they work lap 53 of 55. So they'll have 2 more times around this Roval to make something happen, while when Mitchell DeJong gets back to the line, it'll be the white flag. A slip up by Garrett Maines there. The back end of the truck kicked out on him, and I thought Casey Tucker was going to have a shot at it. They'll see the popsicle sticks from the flag stand. Barney the flagman this time by. It'll be 2 laps to go for them, 1 minute and 5 seconds behind the race leader. So we'll shift back to Mitchell DeJong now and pick him up as he's already working through the banking of turns 3 and 4 of the oval down to turns 15, 16, 17. He'll face the white flag at the Roval this time around in what has been nothing short of absolute perfection. Blake McCandless, he heads to turn 1 for the final time.
Well, and I think it's about time for somebody who manages the @RealVRS, the Virtual Racing School Twitter, to key up that time tweet that was probably written a couple of hours ago, congratulating Mitchell DeJong on his win here at the Charlotte Roval, as again, he holds what is now over a 30-second advantage over Steven Wilson, who has not even reached the white flag yet. He'll actually do it right now. But again, Mitchell DeJong, no doubt about it, the class of the field as he'll work it onto the quad oval for the final time.
So Mitchell DeJong out of turn 8 and into the banking as we have crossed the white flag. And as you mentioned, they could have pretty much written the victory tweet at the start of this race after qualifying, because he was outpaced him by 0.6 of a second, and from there he is left absolutely no doubt as to who the fastest man in town was. Through 3 and 4 of the oval for the final time, he'll head to the 15, 16, 17 complex, and for the first time this season in the top split on Road to Pro, it's victory lane. It's an absolute Roval clinic. Mitchell DeJong gets the job done and takes the checkered flag at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. We want to go back and pick up the battle now that's almost an entire lap behind the race leader. Couple of battles, as a matter of fact. The battle for 7th between Jake Matheson and Zach Nichols after the white flag. They're coming up onto the banking of turns 8 and 9 right now, and Nichols is going to have a look inside. Matheson slams the door on him as they work off of 2 of the oval and down the back straightaway for the last time. The bus stop chicane going to be one more shot. Can Nichols outbrake him and get to the bumper? He tries it, and I don't think can get there, and he's going to have to play defense from Braden Boulos now. Again, this is the battle for 7th, 8th, and 9th coming through turns 13 and 14 for the final time off the banking. So it's going to be a 7th place finish for Matheson, who holds off Zach Nichols and Braden Boulos to the bitter end. Carson Hocevar is going to complete the top 10. And if you're Casey Tucker, you're coming to the line, you give Ryan Kuhn a bump, and Tucker's charge from 31st on the grid ends in a 12th place finish here tonight. And if you want to know what the final margin of victory was for Mitchell de Jong, 33 seconds over runner-up Steven Wilson. That, my friends, is utter domination. There's no other way to describe it. It was picture perfect, Michael Guerrilla, and if you weren't afraid now going into Canadian Tire Motorsport Park and you're the rest of this top split field, you better be a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm sure Mitchell has already had the field on watch even before this race even started, as we know the prowess that he has on these road courses, but it's now even furthered with the way that he's shown tonight with a 33-second win over Steven Wilson. So looking into the next race our next road course, at Mosport, that is the track we're going to. It'll be interesting to see how much of a performance he can put on there. But yeah, De Jong really set the pace tonight, and it'd be really interesting to see how he can carry that momentum into Michigan in 2 weeks.
So we'll give you a look at the results after we do some business. Congratulations, Mitchell de Jong, on a wire-to-wire performance at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. We'll have a few words from our supporters and be back with the post-race show here on Podium Esports in a couple of minutes from the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. This is Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, and we're back with more right after this.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Aloma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Lowe. 4 wide at the stripe. For all he's with here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Welcome back to post-race coverage of round 5 for the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro from the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Jacob Seelman, Blake McCandless, Michael Guerrilla starting to wrap up tonight's action on the road course at Charlotte. We'll first take you through tonight's full field rundown where Mitchell DeJong completely destroyed the field. There is no other way to go about it. 33 seconds over Steven Wilson, Donovan Strauss, and all Toyota Tundra podium tonight. Alan Bowe's fourth. Daniel Roper completes the top 5. Seth DeMerchant, Jake Matheson, Zach Nichols, Braden Boulos, and Carson Hocevar snuck in for the top 10 at the end, Blake McCandless.
He certainly did. Ryan Kuhn was able to hang on for 11th over Casey Tucker, who brings it home in 12th. Garrett Maines finishes up 13th. Derek Bordeaux, a rebound for the ages, gets spun on lap 1. He ends up 14th. Ryan Doucette, our points leader, gets a solid run tonight. He'll take that solid run in 15th. Briar LaPrade, 2 stopped it. He finished up in 16th. Drew Fearnaz, he brings it home in 17th. Dylan Rafferty in 18th. Michael Finlayson, he was a late addition to top split. He brings it home 19th. And Jarrett Liebert rounds out the top 20.
21st tonight went to Kenny Brady. Jacob Hall was 22nd. Blake Neer, 23rd. 24th was Caden Honeycutt. Dylan Jones is 25th. Brandon McKissick, 26th. Brandon Houff, 27th. Nick Morse, 28th. 29th to Ryan Blackford. The last truck running at the finish. Brad Mahar, Trayton Lapsevich, and Will Norton complete the 32 truck top split field tonight, and we're going to have a host of post-race interviews. It's fun when we can get everybody involved. We'll actually bring you through the entirety of the top 5 tonight. We will start with 5th and slide it over to Michael Guerilla, who is going to catch up with one of the drivers that was pretty impressive and just hung on, was kind of solid all night long, and we'll send it over to Guerilla with Daniel Roper.
And yes, I'm down here with Daniel Roper, the number 8 Chevy Silverado, coming home in a 5th place tonight. Daniel Roper, hey Daniel, you had a good solid finish today in 5th. Tell us about your day. Tell us how you're.
Yeah, it was a pretty quiet race, to be honest with you. Got a little contact on the first lap. Got like 40 seconds of damage from a little contact with Alan there. I think it kind of put a damper in us a little bit, but I think maybe 4th place is what maybe the pace we had tonight. But you know, qualifying 8th, I'm really happy to move up to 5th. Another good points night for us. Really happy with how the night went overall. Didn't have anything for Mitchell. I mean, that guy was in another zip code all night. Congrats to him. He's definitely got it under control here in the road course stuff.
Yeah, you were talking about how Mitchell had the race pretty much under control. Talk about how hard it was to navigate this track, not only for just a handful of laps, but an entire 55 laps of keeping sharp focus.
It was a real struggle. I did my first race run probably 5 days ago where I did 27 laps, and I was like, holy crap, this is going to be miserable. It's just so tight. You really can't make any mistakes with this tire. You lose the grip, and you're just sliding for a couple laps because you just overheat the rear tire. But really happy to get this fire truck paint scheme in the top 5, and looking forward to getting back to the ovals.
Yeah, good solid result here. We're moving on to Michigan here in about 2 weeks. How do you feel about that track for you and your?
I honestly think we've been the team to beat this year on the oval package. I haven't quite sealed the deal on a win in top split yet, but you know, every single race we've been there at the end. I'm really proud of that for this year. So I'm just going to keep our head down, keep grinding, and hopefully we can bring a really strong truck again to Michigan like we have the last couple ovals.
Daniel, I want to give you a shot to shout out to the sponsors and supporters, but I'm glad you mentioned the fire truck scheme, and I wanted you to talk about that in giving those shout outs as well, because that was a different look for you, but one I know that you and I talked about coming into the week was a really cool deal for you to run tonight.
Yeah, I'm doing iRacing and everything, going to college, also volunteer fireman up here in Long Island, Garden City, New York. Get to drive fire trucks, go inside, fight fires, all that fun stuff. Yesterday was, I believe, National Firefighter Day, so I wanted to run a paint scheme that kind of paid a little bit of tribute to stuff that I enjoy doing on the side and helping my community. And it's cool to give back to the community like that, and also have quite a bit of fun.
Well, we appreciate the time. Real quickly, if there's any other shout outs, supporters, people you want to thank, now would be the time to do so.
Thank everyone that tuned in tonight that supports me. A couple guys from the fire department that were watching, my girlfriend and her family, they were all tuned in. Really great to see them supporting me and whatnot. You know, they're not really race fans, but it's great to see them get involved with something weren't into before, but now they're really passionate about. Autism awareness on the hood. John Dragonetti's girlfriend on the side, who passed away from cancer. I'm gonna have her on the car the whole season. You know, it's John's a really good dude. Just really sad to hear about that. And also got Ronald Davidson on the door, one of my best friends' grandfather who passed away from COVID-19, unfortunately. So he'll be riding on my door with me for the rest of the year. And I appreciate the broadcast, guys.
We appreciate it as well. That's Daniel Roper, who comes home 5th, and we'll toss it up a spot. Blake McCandless will catch up with tonight's 4th place finisher, Alan Bowes.
And certainly a run that Alan Bowes can be quite proud of was coming into tonight in that big gaggle of trucks that you'll often see directly outside the top 20, as he was scored 30th in points, and he does himself a good service here tonight, brings it home in the 4th position. So Alan, you had a good qualifying effort, started up there in the top 10, but just kind of talk about, you know, this track, how it changes, and just how you're able to have that long run speed to move forward a little bit.
Yeah, the truck was really good in the long run. It was pretty hard to drive though, either way. The track was a lot tighter than what we've been testing in all week, so I got the pleasure of knocking down the wall on the first lap there, which is what that right front damage was from. But you know, I got to thank TA Motorsports and Landon Huffman for being on the truck now. They came on board at the beginning of the season, and they've been a really big help so far.
They really haven't. You know, I'll give you a second to talk about that, because there were a couple of trucks, whether it's up here in the top split or even scattered amongst a couple of different splits here in Road to Pro, where those Total Advantage trucks have really stuck out. And obviously you have a solid group of drivers up there who are trying to make a run at this thing.
Yeah, Landon came to us at the beginning of the season. He really wanted to get involved with the Road to Pro side, the Pro side, and hopefully eventually the NASCAR and Coca-Cola series. And this felt like a really good opportunity for us, and I'm hoping it's a good opportunity for him to get his name out there, get his brand. And John Dragonetti, got to thank him. You know, Dan mentioned it in his interview. He's a great guy. I don't have his girlfriend on the side of the car. I'll have to get that fixed, but he painted me this paint scheme, as he's done since back in the days when I was in Coke. And, you know, I'm just really happy to finally get back in top 5, get some points. It's what we needed.
Certainly so. Well, I'll go ahead and hand you the mic one more time. It's all yours. Thank you. Obviously, along with your Total Advantage teammates, anybody else who got you up here tonight?
Yeah, Steven Wilson finished P2. He had a great run. He and I worked a lot on the set this week. Houston Hamer put a lot of work into the set. You know, I got to thank TA Motorsports and Landon Huffman again for the opportunity to drive for them. Even the guys in some of the lower splits, Sam Adams, he had a good run tonight. Blake Bryant had pretty unfortunate events happen in, I think, second split. So we got a lot of guys that are ready to get going here, and we're going to keep trying to make a run at it.
No, certainly so. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alan. One of 2 Total Advantage Motorsports drivers who find themselves in the top 5 after 55 laps at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Alan Bowes brings it home 4th, and we have caught up with another driver in Donovan Strauss, who is without a doubt the youngest driver up here running with us, but he is part of a Horizon group that has placed a truck inside the top 5 in every race they've competed in. He's caught up with Jacob Seelman.
Yeah, Donovan, I think tonight was a case of everybody was running for second. You didn't quite get to second, but it's still a podium result regardless for you and this 51. And you've just kind of been, it seems like, hanging around every single week. Not a win yet, but just lurking top 3 to 5 or 6. And it's been a really good start to the season, consistent start. 6th in points coming in, and this will improve on that tonight.
Yeah, I can't thank everyone at Horizon enough, especially Seth and Taylor Hurst for the amazing car tonight. I've worked really hard past couple months for this race, and it definitely paid off tonight.
For those who don't necessarily know your story and hear you start talking, Blake mentioned you're the youngest driver up here. How old are you?
14.
And yet you just finished third on the Roval. It's tremendously impressive. Have you felt any pressure these first 5 races at all, just knowing the experience level of some of the guys you're racing against?
Yeah, I've definitely been nervous kind of in all the races, especially qualifying, but I've just kind of learned to try and just put that behind me and just, do what I can with the cars I have behind me. Like, Seth building the best cars he can. It's definitely possible.
Everybody knew there was no catching Mitchell tonight. Did you feel like you had anything to maybe try and go after Steven in the closing stages, or was this a case of a third place finish kind of being representative of about where you guys were going to end up?
Yeah, early on, I didn't really have anything for Steven, and late in the race, I didn't either. It was just me and Alan Bose racing for third, to be honest, at the end of that race. And to be honest, I'm not even a road course racer. I haven't, my first road course race was just a couple weeks ago, and it was in a Mazda. But I've worked really hard the past couple months, and it definitely paid off for sure.
I'll hand you the mic one more time, Donovan. Shout-outs, thank yous. Anybody else you need to give a call to that helps this 51 be fast every other week with the Road to Pro?
Yeah, can't thank everyone at Horizon, Seth the Merchant, Taylor Hurst, everyone else on Horizon for helping me so much, and, just all the work they put in. I can't thank JDR Graphics enough for making me look good. But yeah, that's basically it.
Well, he came in 6th in points, and another podium finish will certainly help improve on that. Donovan Strauss, a third-place run at the Roval tonight, and the driver just ahead of him, coming up second, and a very distant second at that, is now standing by with Blake McCandless. Stephen Wilson, tonight's runner-up.
And Stephen Wilson, the second of 2 Total Advantage Motorsports drivers that we've been able to catch up with tonight. Well, unfortunately, Stephen, a great run. You start up in second, but there's just one guy named Mitchell DeJong who kind of ruined the party for at least for you to visit victory lane. But I'm certain that you can't be disappointed with the run you had tonight.
Oh, yeah, we're happy with the run we had. We came in thinking we had good pace, and obviously we don't know. Mitchell's a lottery, he's very good on road pro. We were expecting him to be pretty fast, and finishing second to him is nothing to be sad about.
No, it's certainly not. But we looked forward. We were trying to look and see. You're right outside the top 20 in points. 4th start here in the 5 weeks that we've been running Road to Pro. And it's kind of the same stories we were talking with Alan Bose a little bit earlier. You're kind of in that huge clog of trucks that are all within about, I call it 30 or 40 points of each other right outside the top 20. What is a night like tonight where you're gaining upwards of nearly 400 points against that about 250, 260 average that you're looking for each week? What do weeks like this do for you long term?
Yeah, weeks like this definitely help. Can't really afford too many bad weeks since I missed. I actually had a broken ankle for that race, so I sat it out and didn't know if I was going to run it all this year, so I'm glad to be here now. And good points day, and I think we got a good chance at it if we can keep these consistent good finishes up.
Well, certainly so. Well, you move forward from the Roval. We go to Michigan International Speedway, about a biggest 180 you can think about in terms of polar opposite racetracks. What are you guys looking forward to about the challenge that a track like Michigan presents that's different from this one?
Yeah, completely different. Obviously, next week next race, will probably be more draft lock. We'll see a lot of cars close together, and we'll need some long runs to get some spacing compared to this race where everybody was spaced out. And Michigan, honestly, not one of my favorites. I prefer the old one, but what can you do about that? And we've had a good pace at the oval, so hopefully we can bring it in there.
All righty. Well, I'll go ahead and hand you the mic one more time. I know you have a couple of people out there to thank and helped you get out here on the podium tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Landon Huffman at Total Advantage and all those guys, of course, for being the sponsors on all of our trucks on Dead Zone and Houston Hammer, working on the setup, and Alan. All those guys do some hard work, and I'd like to thank Nathan Lyon for being on the box as well.
All right, there you have it, folks. Steven Wilson, one spot short, and now we finally get to catch up with Jacob Seelman, who has caught up with, without a doubt, one of the biggest dominant performances we've ever seen in the NASCAR iRacing Road to Pro series. And Mitchell DeJong is in victory lane with Jacob Seelman.
I called it perhaps the most dominant road racing performance I've ever seen from perhaps the most dominant road racing driver on the sim today. And I know, Mitchell, you're probably gonna fuss at me for heaping praise like that, but 33 seconds clear. Was there any part of this race at all that was a challenge once you got out front at the start? I mean, that looked as effortless as anything I've seen at the Roval.
The Roval's a tough one. This was the first race for me at this track, and it's just an unforgiving one, even though we had like a comfortable lead, any moment I could have just stuffed it in the wall. So I'm still sweating, like I was just, battling for the lead at another track, and it's a really cool win to be able to win like this. Was no complaints at all. I was not sure like where we kind of stand pace wise. Just tried to basically nail my laps the best I could. No, it was really kind of surprising me. I thought we had decent pace, and I was just kind of happy to get a clean run in. I think that was kind of the key here. So no, really stoked at that one for sure.
For you, who have spent so much time between the Grand Prix World Championship, the Porsche Super Cup, the Rallycross Championship, what kind of skills from past experience did you take and lean on coming into a race and a track in the Roval that you hadn't seen before, and what worked?
Yeah, actually, I would say probably the best help I could have had was the World Championship on our roadside getting switched to the Porsche Cup car these last 2 years. So it drives a lot similar to this truck compared to, say, Formula One that we've had in the past, or even Rallycross. I guess in a way that kind of helps too, because it teaches you car control. This doesn't drive particularly great, I would say. You just kind of dance the car around on the limit, try not to overdrive it too much, and try not to underdrive it. So it's a very small window you have to keep it in to go fast, and just trying to get comfortable doing that is the tricky part, but it's also so satisfying when you get it right.
I'm curious from a standpoint of we know the road success for you, but what was the motivation as far as Road to Pro to come out and chase trying to get to the top level of primarily oval racing on the circuit? Is it about a new challenge for you, or what really was the spur for you to really take a shot at Road to Pro this year?
I'll be honest, I never really followed much oval racing up until last year. Then came the opportunity to, help Keegan Leahy out, spotting for him during the races. And that was kind of my introduction into, seeing how the racing is and stuff like that. Come January, did not plan on running Road to Pro at all. But I did a few races for fun when we had, a bit of a break. And just kind of spending a week, say, driving, I think it was the B car, Xfinity car at Vegas fixed. Just kind of learning the racing, learning how you handle the tires and everything like that was actually really fun. And that kind of piqued my interest there. And, with all the other series starting now, I had a very small window to try to decide, okay, am I going to try to run for Road to Pro, get my rating up? Because I was like a 3,000 iRating oval guy at the time. And, up until a week ago, we have been farming this whole time, trying to get in the right split and all that. And it's cool to have it come together, right at the road course to make the top split and, have a good race. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
You were 9th in points coming in, and we're waiting on the official update, but I anticipate a top split win will catapult you at least a couple of spots forward. So it looks like going to be in good shape, and even only 5 races in, that's going to, I think, put you in solid standing. Has, going forward, has this been what you expected so far, or do you feel like there's still more to learn?
Absolutely, always stuff to learn. For me, if I just can get the minimum points in the split I'm in, just to be able to make pro at the end of this, that's a huge victory for me. We've had some really good races on the oval so far. Homestead was a good one. Last one was a bit more difficult, but still got really good points. So honestly, that's kind of my goal. I just want to make pro, just kind of go from there, doing the best I can, like learning setup, learning still how to race these things, and let's hope it keeps going. So we'll see.
I'm officially going to correct what I just said, because I just got handed points as we were looking at it. You were 9th coming in. You are now 5th in points leaving the Roval, and about some 260 good of the cutoff for the moment. So a lot of positive news there, Mitchell, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. Before we let you go, shout outs, thank you, sponsors, anybody that you need to give a call to that helped make it happen and get you into victory lane tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Big shout out to Keegan and Chris for hanging out with me in the box, keeping me company during the thing, and everyone that helps practice for these things. Takes a lot of time, and time is a tough thing right now. All our other partners, everyone at Coanda, Virtual Racing School, SimQuip, Andwin Design, and VTech.
Well, the Virtual Racing School coach schooled everybody tonight at the Roval, and Mitchell DeJong, a convincing victory. Congratulations again. Thanks for joining the Podium Esports post-race show, and we'll plan on seeing you back on the track in 2 weeks.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'll turn to Blake McCandless. We now have points, and Ryan Doucette holds on to the championship lead, but it is only by 45 points over Zach Nichols, who had a really good night. So that 100-plus point margin coming in really got slashed, and I think for this Road to Pro title, it's going to get interesting when you consider Doucette, Nichols, Matheson, Strauss, and even Mitchell for everything he's done after that rough race at Daytona. 5 guys within 150 or so points of the top spot. We know they're likely going to race in the top 20 and head on to pro in the winter, but the battle for the championship and bragging rights is getting impressive too, 5 races in.
Oh, it certainly is. And of course, this is a series where it's not all about winning that championship. You're always just thinking, I got to stay in the top 20. These guys are more or less looking below at their advantage right now, which for Ryan Doucette in the points lead is 428 points, which for those of you out there maybe unfamiliar with how iRacing scores points, that's well over an entire race worth of points. So Doucette, Nichols, Maths, that entire top 5, they're in a very good position when we talk about having a drop race. They could probably afford one right now, and they'll still stay well within the top 20 in points. But of course, like you mentioned, the racers are always competitive. There's always bragging rights, and one of these guys would like to call themselves the champion of this entire thing that they call Road to Pro. But right now, Doucette will hang on to that. But I'm just looking at the battle really around the top 40 in points. 15th through 40th is separated by, call it about 200 points, which is about half a race or so of points. So that's where things are going to get really interesting, is right around that 20th place cutoff that John Furness now has a stronghold by only 5 points over Eddie Kerner. That's where things get really interesting, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on as we move forward to a track in Michigan, which a lot of these guys are probably much more familiar with that than they were with the Charlotte Roval tonight.
I'm looking at the driver sitting 22nd in points right now, Andrew Freenage, who has climbed to within 12 of that cut line, and I think is going to be one to watch going forward. Final thoughts from our resident driver analyst, we'll say, Michael Guerrilla. DeJong schooled him, but there were a few guys who needed a solid night and definitely got it here at the Roval.
Yeah, definitely. Where we talked numerous times tonight about Casey Tucker from 31st up to 12th. I mean, that's a huge boost in points right there, considering where he started at. We mentioned he started way outside the top 100 in points, and now he's roughly inside the top 100, still looking for him through the sheet, but he's definitely gained a lot of spots out of that as well. On top of that, Derek Bordeaux as well. So a lot of recovery drives amidst those who were maintaining track position from the start. And yeah, just kind of playing follow the leader behind Mitchell DeJong, who was the class of the field tonight on a very treacherous track at the Charlotte Roval here tonight. But yeah, overall, very entertaining race, trying to see who comes and who goes. And yeah, a lot of tight battling across the field.
If you're looking for Casey Tucker, he was outside 110 in the points coming in. He is now up to a tie for 80th in the championship. That is how quickly a good night can boost you forward when the points are as tight as they are on this road to pro. So with that, that's pretty well going to settle things out and draw to a close our Podium Esports coverage of round number 5 of Road to Pro. We will continue forward with Road to Pro in 2 weeks' time and get back at it once again, and hope you'll join us then. But right now, for Blake McCandless, Michael Grillia, and of course Ryan Bauer, our producer down in the trailer, Jacob Seelman saying thank you to James Pike, Cisco Scaramuza, and all the rest of the Podium Esports crew, John Theodore, Gary Sexton among them, and saying that we have a whole lot more coming up as well later this week, starting with ERL on Wednesday night on the ERL Twitch channel under Podium Production. Thursday, it's the Icebox Pickup Throwdown iRacing Truck Series, 8 p.m. On Podium, as well as Eric Estep's YouTube channel. And I'll tell you what, it's been fun. It's only going to continue to be fun for the Icebox Pickup Throwdown, as that the last 2 Thursday nights have been tremendous, and that will be another good one to watch on Thursday night. I'm really looking forward to it. So again, keep it tuned to Podium Esports on social for all the latest when it comes to our continuing coverage here on the iRacing platform. And for now, congratulations to Mitchell DeJong, who gets the job done at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time to do it all over again here on the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro. For Blake, Michael, and Ryan, till we meet again.